So today's topic is work heartily as for the Lord. And Ecclesiastes 2:24-26 will be the central passage of today's sermon. And where we'll head first is we're going to look at work as a blessing. Because, for me personally, for a long time I didn't look at work as a blessing. And I only learned later that, work is a blessing when it is done for the Lord. And that is key. But before that, I want to make sure everyone feels included. Because work isn't just a job. Work is, and we can easily see a job as being work. Something where you get paid for doing it, we're like, yeah, that's work. But maybe yard work or housework or raising your kids, we maybe don't always view that as work. But that is work, and that is something. And the only type of work isn't just one that you get paid for. There's lots of kinds of work. And just a shout out for the ladies who might think work is, just about men. The good and virtuous wife of Proverbs 31, the ideal, she has a few side gigs going. She's buying some vineyards, she's planting them, she's making some cloths and selling them. She's keeping busy with some work. And this passage in Ecclesiastes, it's kind of interesting because the whole time before this, the first two chapters, he's talking about how everything is vanity. Gathering riches, doing this, doing that, everything is vanity. But then now we get to a point and he says, work isn't vanity. It's a good thing. And it's easy to think of work as a bad thing. Because, who likes going to work? Everyone looks forward to the weekend. Everyone looks forward to vacation. After you come back from vacation, you're looking forward to the next one. But work shouldn't be something that we view negatively. And so we're going to start, as I said, by looking at work as a blessing and not a curse. And God blesses us with work. Let's open up to Genesis 1:28. Where it says the following: God blessed them and said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and subdue it, rule over the fish of the sea and the birds of the air and every creature that crawls upon the earth." God establishes work for them as part of this blessing. He blesses them to be fruitful and multiply, but then he also tells them to subdue the earth and rule over it. And this isn't just like, be the king and beat everything into submission, do whatever you want to it. No, this is talking about caring for it, caring for the earth, caring for nature. If something goes out of balance, put it in balance. Kind of maybe comparable to how you need to mow your lawn every, for 1 to 2 weeks. And if you're not weeding, at least once a month, my yard starts getting crazy with weeds. And in chapter 2, he puts them into the Garden of Eden, and he tells them to tend to it. He didn't put them in paradise in the Garden of Eden to sit on a beach and tan and maybe, assign some monkeys to fan them with some leaves and bring them some grapes or something, and they just chill and relax and have a great time at Eden. No, from the beginning, there was work assigned. Again, because work is a blessing, not a curse. And I'm going to keep saying that. What do we mean by blessing? How is work a blessing? In what way? Biblically, you are blessed when you have the favor of the Lord. So when you're working, when you're doing your work, you have the favor of the Lord. That's a blessing. The ability to work is a blessing. Not everyone has an ability to work. Some people have some infirmity or someone's leg hurts or something and they can't do some things that they'd like to do. Some people maybe just don't have the capacity for it emotionally or mentally or in some other way. The fact that you earn something, that you earn money, is a blessing from God in work. The fact that you can witness to others through your work, that you're a Christian, that people could look at you and come to the Lord and praise God, because of how you work, hopefully you work in a way that people will praise God. That is a blessing. And of course, just glorifying God through work is a blessing. And work, key thing, isn't a result of a curse in chapter 3 of Genesis. See, God was the first person to work in the Bible, and he gives us an example because he worked for 6 days, and on the seventh day he rested. By the way, did you guys ever think about how many other times did he rest after that? You know, he worked 6 days, rests on the seventh day. Has he ever taken any more days of rest? I don't think so. And even in the day that he was resting, he wasn't just doing nothing, being idle, because, well, he sustains all of creation. Without him, things would fall apart. So God never rests. He is always working. And Psalm 121 verse 4 supports this. It says, "Behold, he who keeps Israel will neither slumber nor sleep." See, we get tired. We maybe stop doing as good of a job at work or watching our kids or whatever else it is because we're human, we're in a physical body. God never tires. He's always watching. He never slumbers. He never sleeps. He's always there for us, which is a great thing, but can be a scary thing. Isaiah 64:8 says the following, "But now, O Lord, you are our Father. We are the clay and you are the potter. We are all the work of your hands." God is constantly working on you. He is working on you as a believer. He's constantly shaping you to his will, and sometimes we don't want to shape to his will. He's constantly making us a better reflection of him. In the Bible, it also talks about God as a purifier of silver. And by the way, how they purify silver is they heat it up really hot. All the slag, they call it, all the bad stuff, rises to the top. You scrape it up, and you repeat the process, and you repeat the process. And if you ask a silversmith, how does he know that his silver is pure and ready and done? Well, he will tell you, when I look at it and I can see my reflection. God is a silversmith, and he is purifying us until he sees his reflection in us. John 5:17 is another passage where we see God is working all the time. But Jesus answered them, "My Father is working until now, and I am working. He is always working on the plan of salvation." He is softening hearts. He's growing believers. He's growing his kingdom. He's directing the church here, there. He is constantly at work. There's always something to do. If we're sleeping here, someone's awake on the other end of the world who needs God's attention. And that is how it is. So, one thing I want to say about God. We say that we need to fear the Lord. But then we always say, oh, but it's not that kind of fear. Like maybe how you fear your father. No, yes, but sometimes I think we go too far into that. This might be more like the fear where your mom told you to thaw the chicken when she left in the morning, and it's now the afternoon, and she texted you, "Hey, I'll be home in 5 minutes," and you realize you forgot to thaw the chicken and that you're going to be in big trouble. So you run out, maybe grab a hair dryer or something. You're trying to unthaw that chicken because you don't want to be in trouble. See, God is always watching. And while he is a loving father, we should sometimes have a bit more fear of the fact that he is watching what we are doing, and we need to do our work faithfully and well. See, we are made in his image. And part of what he does is work. And being lazy or idle is a sin. Keeping busy is a virtue. Proverbs is full of passages that talk about how laziness or idleness is a sin. If you want to learn more about that, you can open up Proverbs and just start reading. But one of the examples it gives is, look at the ant, O you sluggard, and learn from it. And at my house, I have a little bit of an ant problem. I'm kind of taking care of it and, let's say, eradicating them. But while I was prepping for this sermon, for lunch I had a glass of orange juice and I left it on the desk. And then I don't quite remember what happened, but maybe my wife needed help with Nathaniel, and I went out, and then I started doing another task, and then we ate dinner, and I come back, and I look, and I start working on my sermon. I feel something on my arm, and I look, and it's an ant. So I hit it, and then I start looking, where are the other ants? And that cup of orange juice that I had left, there was, I don't know, like in the movies, like in the cartoons, a line of ants going up from the corner, like somewhere from under the floor, coming out, marching across the floor, up my desk, into the glass of orange juice, and, being industrious, being busy. And I was pretty surprised at how quick such a large amount of ants appeared. And how did they even find it? So again, learn from the ant. Keeping busy is a virtue, as I've been saying. And I want to read from 2 Thessalonians 3:10 and 11. And this is Paul writing to the Thessalonians. For even when we were with you, we would give you this command. If anyone is not willing to work, let him not eat. For we hear that some among you walk in idleness, not busy at work, but busybodies. See, the early church was a bit more like a commune. We read the stories of people selling all their stuff, bringing it to the church, them caring for one another. Daily, they would eat and drink together. And some people, it seems, decided to take advantage of this and not work at all. And just, come to the believers and, I guess, leech off of them. Might be a bit of a rude word, but that was what it was. And they wouldn't work. They would just come. They would eat. They would drink. They would fellowship. And Paul is against this. Notice that these people that were not willing to work, that weren't working, were the busybodies. They weren't doing good things. They were spreading rumors. They were probably causing some divisions in the church, causing offense. See, an interesting thing happens when we have too much free time, when we're doing nothing. We tend to start doing bad things. Now, my son is a little too young for me to be able to confirm this, but I asked Paul and he confirmed this to me. When kids don't have anything to do, they typically find something bad to do, something that they shouldn't be doing, something that they know their parents wouldn't want them to do. And even as adults, we are like that. And it's kind of odd, kind of funny maybe, but for some reason, we are like that. For some reason, when we're not keeping busy, we start doing bad things. Or on the flip side, when people retire, there's this interesting thing that they seem to deteriorate in cognitive ability and physical ability much quicker if they don't keep busy with something else. In fact, there's a disease called Alzheimer's. One thing that you cannot do for a person with Alzheimer's if they're struggling with doing a task is help them and do it for them. Reason why? Because if they're not doing things, if they're not practicing the skills that they have, they will atrophy and they will disappear completely. And that is the worst thing that you could do for them, is take away the very little that they still can do for themselves. And actually, same thing with kids, but from the opposite side. If you're doing everything always for them, they'll never learn, and you can actually hold back your kid from learning things that they need to learn. So, again, idleness is a sin. Keeping busy is actually a Christian virtue. It's actually called the Protestant work ethic. You may have heard of this. It is a thing. Galatians 6, 9, and 10, I think, encourages us to not weary. And let us not grow weary of doing good, for in due season we will reap if we do not give up. But then, as we have opportunity, let us do good to everyone, and especially to those who are of the household of faith. So first of all, from the earlier thought, don't grow weary of doing good. Always continue to do good, even if maybe you're not seeing the results of it. Maybe no one's thanking you. No one's noticing it. Continue to do good. But notice that there's a call for something else in here. We're not called just to work enough to provide for ourselves. Work isn't just so that you could take care of your family, make enough money, clothe them, feed them, do the things that you need to do, raise the kids right. Part of what he wants us to do is, when we have opportunity, to do good to everyone, especially to those of the church. So we need to be making money, and we need to be making money not just so that we have a lot more, so that we could buy a much better house or a much cooler car, but so that we could bless others with that money. That is why God gives us work and gives us money. And by the way, one of the most common accusations of God against Israel in the Old Testament is that they do not take care of the orphan and they do not take care of the widow. That is a constant thing that he brings up and says, hey, why are you not doing this? Do you not think I won't take care of them? Because you oppress them, bad things will happen to you. So again, God blesses you so that you could bless others. It's not just so you could keep it all for yourself and have it be all for you. And again, don't grow weary, but stay faithful. Now, the final point I kind of want to make on the whole work as a blessing is that you were made for a divine purpose, and part of that purpose is to work a job. Whether it's a plumber, an accountant, I don't know, a teacher, a professor, some person working in a laboratory or sweeping floors. Whatever it is, God intended for you to be there. Consider it a ministry for you and act accordingly. Though sadly, sometimes we don't treat ministry as we should. So I don't know, maybe for some of us, we should treat our work better than we treat our ministry, or better yet is treat both very well and act right at both and do the things you should at both. Be a good example. Give everything to the Lord. Work as unto the Lord. Because we will answer for all that we do or don't do. But you might say, okay, like, I hear you, but what about in Genesis chapter 3? Isn't there that curse where work gets cursed and now work is bad? Because, the curse of Adam. Well, let's look at that passage and look and study it a little bit. The passage is Genesis 3:17 and through 19. Because you have listened to the voice of your wife and have eaten of the tree which I commanded you, you shall not eat of it. Cursed is the ground because of you. In pain you shall eat of it all the days of your life. Thorns and thistles it shall bring forth for you, and you shall eat the plants of the field. By the sweat of your face you shall eat bread till you return to the ground, for out of it you were taken, for you are dust, and to dust you shall return. Now, the first thing I'd like us to pay attention to is how it says as part of the curse, you shall eat the plants of the field. That's a curse. Vegetables are a curse. All right, moving on, before I get dragged off. So, I may be the only one, but growing up, I thought that work was Adam's fault. That before we could have been in the Garden of Eden in paradise, just relaxing, not doing work. But again, as we established, work was ordained by God before the fall, and he does it himself, and he continues to do it. So, no, we wouldn't be living in perpetual vacation if not for Adam. Because remember, they had work to do in the garden. And notice that out of the curses given here, work is not a curse. It doesn't say, cursed are you because you shall have to work. No, it says, cursed is the ground for your sake. Now it will bear thorns and thistles, and in the sweat of your face you will eat bread. See, work hasn't been cursed, the ground has been cursed. And now maybe we could say work is being hindered, work is harder, but work is not cursed. Work is not a cursed thing, but it has become harder. By the way, it says that we will eat by the sweat of our face. By the sweat of your face you shall eat bread. What this should tell you is, there are no easy jobs. It's an interesting thing. I started, my work career working in construction, kind of in the field. And I was like, those office people, it's always so easy for them. And then I worked for a time in the office. And, one, it gets a little boring, but sitting all day, suddenly your back starts to hurt. Or, you get carpal tunnel or something. It has its own struggles. And so all jobs, no matter what job you get, there will be hardships. Maybe growing up, I think maybe for the younger people, one of the jobs that you might have really wanted, especially as a guy, is to be like a Twitch streamer and just play video games and make millions of dollars. Funny thing is, turns out a lot of those streamers who play video games for a living and make millions of dollars, they complain that it's hard because, I got to be funny, I got to be entertaining, otherwise no one will watch me. And they talk about how hard it is. And you'll think, well, you're getting to play video games all day and you're making millions. Turns out that has its own hardships too. So do not expect to have an easy job. Any job will have its difficulties. In the sweat of your brow, you shall eat bread. That is part of the curse. That is how it is. Sorry for the bad news. Now, despite the fact that a curse was given to the earth and now work has been hindered, work is still a blessing. This does not cancel that. Again, we have our passage in Ecclesiastes 2:24, and I'd like to focus on this specific part. There is nothing better for a person that he should eat and drink and find enjoyment in his toil. This also I saw is from the hand of the Lord, from apart from him, who can eat or have enjoyment? So, you go to work, you have to work your 40 hours a week or maybe more, and it's tough, and maybe your wrists hurt, or maybe your legs hurt, or your eyes hurt, or whatever else it is, whatever strain work puts on your body. And you might think, people yell at me, I have to do this, I have to deal with these irate customers. How is this a blessing? How can work be a blessing? And again, maybe Solomon would agree if you just read chapters 1 and 2 and not the end of chapter 2. And yet he says there is nothing better for a person that he should eat and drink and find enjoyment in his toil. How can we find enjoyment in our toil? Because, it's toil. Sweat of the brow, thorns, thistles. How? It's hard. This also I saw is from the hand of the Lord, from apart from him, who can eat or who can have enjoyment. Only with God can you have enjoyment in your toil. When you change your mindset to work isn't a curse, but work is a blessing, and I am doing this for the Lord, then you can find enjoyment in your work. The only way is with God. Solomon has tried everything. He was rich. He had all those many wives. He had all that beautiful music, all that awesome food. Everything is vanity of vanities unless it is with the Lord. And we see also in the continuation of this passage that the non-believer, the sinner who works, it's all vanity, it all disappears. By the way, what is vanity? What does that word mean? Well, just imagine a winter day when you walk out and you go, and you see your breath and then it disappears. That is vanity. It is a vapor, it is a wind. That is another way to translate that word. That is how much substance it has. That is how much your work matters, how much impact it has when it is apart from God. The Bible says it is vanity of vanities. Psalm 128, verses 1 and 2. Blessed is everyone who fears the Lord, who walks in his ways. You shall eat the fruit of the labor of your hands. You shall be blessed, and it shall be well with you. Notice that it's the people who will be blessed will have two things. There are those who fear the Lord and those who walk in the way of the Lord. If you don't fear God, you're not going to walk in the way of God. And again, remember I was talking about how sometimes we don't fear God, right? And sometimes we need to be just a little bit more afraid of him. Blessed is everyone who fears the Lord, who walks in his ways. When you fear the Lord, you will walk in his ways. And then you will be blessed. You will eat of the fruit of the labor of your hands, and you shall be blessed, and it shall be well with you. You could say, blessed are believers, for you shall eat of the fruit of the labor of your hands. You shall be blessed, and it shall be well with you. Work continues to be a blessing. By the way, if God is not Lord in our lives, then our work is just a means to an end. Yeah, it's just a paycheck. It's just so that, just do a job good enough that you don't get fired or yelled at, or maybe promotions are coming up or bonuses are coming up. I need to work a little bit harder. When you view work that way, yeah, work is horrible. You're not going to enjoy work. So then, actually, before I move on, I want to remind you guys of the many parables that Jesus told of servants who were faithful or unfaithful, that their master would leave, they had certain work or certain things they had to do, like the talents or the servant in charge of the household, or just the many stories that he had, and what happened to the faithless servants. You reap what you sow. So, in light of all this, how are we to work? How should my mindset about work, towards work, change? Well, let's look at a Bible passage that I think will teach us. Ephesians 6, 5 through 9. Bondservants, obey your earthly masters with fear and trembling, with a sincere heart as you would Christ, not by the way of eye service as people pleasers, but as bondservants of Christ, doing the will of God from the heart, rendering service with a good will as to the Lord and not to man, knowing that whatever good anyone does, this he will receive back from the Lord, whether he is a bondservant or is free. Masters, do the same to them, and stop your threatening, knowing that he who is both their master and yours is in heaven, and that there will be no partiality with him. So, we are to act, or we are to work like we are working unto the Lord. Not just so that when people are watching, it looks good. Not just good enough that it won't fall apart until the next person comes. Not just enough to, pass. Not just, good enough. Yeah, maybe it wasn't the best quality, but, who cares? No one was watching, or they're not paying me that much for my work. No. You are to do it as for the Lord. Or maybe in another way that you could imagine it is, imagine that for that day, your boss is working with you. He's standing there next to you or sitting there next to you, and you're just working together. Would you work differently from how you regularly work? I mean, hopefully not, but I know for sure I'd be a lot more scared of making a mistake or messing up because I'd want to look good in front of the boss. I'd want to leave a good impression. I definitely wouldn't be taking maybe as many breaks. I wouldn't be answering as many messages on my phone or maybe, taking as many bathroom breaks or whatever else we do. See, again, as I said, sometimes we simplify that fear of the Lord. Maybe we simplify it too much when we go too far on the other end. Maybe sometimes we need to remember God as maybe a wrathful God, as a father from Hebrews 12:6, who punishes his children so that they could be better. See, we will sometimes say, fear God like you fear your dad. I want to remind us that when people saw God or were in God's presence in the Bible, they fell on their faces with fear. They fell on their faces with fear and they said, "Woe is me, for I'm a sinner with unclean lips." Never mind God, they fell on their face in fear before angels. When angels come, they have to say, "Fear not," because of how holy he is, because of how just majestic and awesome in power he is. And yet sometimes we don't fear the Lord. Sometimes we don't do ministry as we should. Sometimes all my friends are going to go to this restaurant or are going to the beach. I'll ask someone else to do it. We don't prioritize it. Sometimes we need to fear the Lord a little more. Now, another thing, so it says, serve the master with fear. Another thing it says is that your heart needs to be in it. It's not just eye service. It's God sees your heart. God sees why you're doing it. He sees where you're coming from. And he wants you to do it genuinely. So again, your heart needs to be in it. Don't be like one of those people in the Bible who cast out demons in his name, who performed miracles in his name, but then when the final day came and they came to him, he said, "Step away from me, workers of iniquity, I never knew you." It is a pretty scary passage if you think about it, because I don't do miracles regularly. I've never healed someone where you pray for him and boom, or I've never cast out demons, and yet people who have done this in his name, he didn't know them. See, he sees the heart. He sees the heart, sees why we do these things that we do, why we do the work that we do. Is it just for the paycheck, or is it to him? See, Earlier, I was mentioning how there's this idea of the Protestant work ethic. What is this idea? Some people attribute it to the Calvinists or to the Puritans or just generally to the Protestants. The idea was that whatever job you have was given to you by God. In the same way that a pastor is ordained to lead a church, that a preacher is ordained, that a worship leader is ordained, you are ordained to do your job. You are ordained to be, in those times, a shepherd or a blacksmith or a carpenter. Or again, for our times, to be an accountant, electrician, office worker, office cleaner, whatever it may be. That God has put you in that place and He wants you to do a good job and to work as for the Lord. And we are to do the job, again, to do it well, whether anyone is watching or not, because, well, God is. And again, as I said, that's a comfort, but it should also encourage us a little bit. And we should always be striving, wherever we work, whatever job we have, we should be striving to be the best worker, to be the best employee, because you're a Christian, because you are a follower of God, because you're a son, a daughter of God. And people look at you as such, and you're an ambassador, a representative of God. And when you do bad in your work, when people see you being lazy or maybe cutting corners, they view it as, if this is fine for a Christian, well, then God is fine with that. And their image of God, their view of God becomes worse and not as positive maybe. And so we need to do a good job because everyone's always watching how will the Christian act. And you need to be a good example. And by the way, by doing this, by being the best employee, you will probably get the promotions. You will probably get the raises. You will be the liked employee. You will have job security. This isn't like a bad thing that we're being told to do. So, we need to view our job as a blessing and as a ministry. We need to view our job not as something that we're doing for our boss or for a paycheck, because, well, then it is vanity of vanities. It is like that breath that just disappears. We need to view our jobs as something that we're doing for the Lord. Because, well, in these passages that I've been reading, it has been mentioned that you will receive a reward from the Lord for it. If you do a good job at your work, this pleases God and He will reward you, maybe in this life, maybe the next, we don't know. But He's watching and He won't remain in debt. So again, when you change your mindset from, work is something I have to do, work is a place I have to show up and do things, and you change it to work as a blessing, work as a thing given to me by God as a ministry, as some place that He wants me to do, and He wants me to do a good job, then work will be a blessing for you. See, sometimes we work harder for ourselves to get our stuff done, and if you were doing construction, well, whatever job you have at your house, you sometimes might do a better job for yourself than someone else. This is wrong. Do it as if you're doing it for God, because, well, He's our boss. He's our Lord. We want to please Him. We want Him to be happy with us. So act like it. Work as for the Lord. As we reflect on today's message, I want us to remember, again, work is not a curse, it is a blessing. God designed it from the beginning as a part of His plan for humanity, and through Christ, it can become a form of worship. It can be something that glorifies God. It becomes your ministry. Again, whether you're working in an office, at home, at a construction site, or maybe you're working at church, your labor has eternal value. It is something that will have an effect in eternity if you're doing it for the Lord. If you're working it for His purposes. Remember that God is working through you in that job to fulfill His purposes, whatever that job may be. Examine your life and see if you are reflecting those values. If you're acting like your work has an eternal impact, if you're acting like God is doing things through your work, if you're acting like God is moving people, shaking mountains, building up His kingdom through your work, Let's strive to honor God in all that we do, knowing that whatever we do, when we're serving him, we will be rewarded by him. And let us work in such a way that when he returns, we could hear the phrase, "Good and faithful servant, enter into the joy of your Lord." Let us stand and pray.